The transport pod's airlock hissed open with a pneumatic whisper, releasing Marcus Chin into the cavernous reception hall of the Galactic Defense Academy. Towering alien cadets turned as one, their collective gaze drilling into the lone human with a mixture of curiosity and open contempt. Marcus stood precisely 1.78 meters tall, a fact that made him appear almost childlike compared to the massive Krell warriors surrounding him. Their exoskeletal plates gleamed under the artificial lighting, each warrior standing nearly 3 meters tall, their reptilian features configured into expressions of pure disdain. To his left, a cluster of silicon-based Xortech cadets ran preliminary scans, holographic data streams dancing around their crystalline bodies. Another human, rumbled Kralltak, the largest of the Krell cadets, his voice a low growl that reverberated through the hall. Another waste of Academy resources. The comment was intentionally loud, designed to humiliate. Surrounding alien cadets chuckled, a sound that was part biological response, part calculated psychological warfare. Marcus said nothing. He had heard worse, much worse. The reception hall was a masterpiece of Sin architecture, designed to accommodate dozens of different species. Gravity modulators created personalized environmental zones, allowing beings from high gravity and low gravity worlds to coexist comfortably. Holographic displays flickered with recruitment statistics, most of which painted a grim picture for human candidates. Humans were relatively new to the Galactic Defense Force, and their acceptance rates were dismally low. As the orientation proceeded, Marcus observed everything. His slate gray uniform, perfectly pressed, stood in stark contrast to the more ornate and personalized uniforms of his alien counterparts. Each movement was calculated, each breath controlled. Years of preparation had led to this moment. The first challenge came quickly, a standard physical assessment that typically eliminated 60% of initial cadets. The testing zone was a massive circular arena with environmental controls that could simulate everything from volcanic landscapes to Arctic wastelands. Each cadet would be evaluated on strength, adaptability, and survival skills. Kralltak positioned himself deliberately close to Marcus, his massive form casting a shadow. "Humans are soft," he muttered, mandibles clicking. "You will break before the first test begins." What the Krell didn't know was that Marcus had spent the last decade preparing for this exact moment. The asteroid belt mining colonies were not a place for the weak. Survival there meant constant adaptation, perpetual learning, and an ability to turn seemingly insurmountable challenges into opportunities. The first test began. A holographic landscape materialized, a volcanic world with atmospheric conditions that would kill most carbon-based life forms within minutes. Gravimetric sensors would measure each cadet's performance, tracking everything from metabolic efficiency to psychological stress responses. Most cadets approached the challenge with brute force tactics. The Krell warriors relied on their natural exoskeletal protection. The Xortech used advanced technological shielding. Marcus, however, saw the environment differently. He noticed microscopic variations in the volcanic terrain that others missed. Subtle thermal gradients, minor geological stress points, atmospheric composition fluctuations. Each was a potential tool for survival. Where others saw a hostile environment, Marcus saw a complex system waiting to be understood. As the test progressed, something unexpected happened. While other cadets struggled, Marcus moved with an almost supernatural efficiency. His movements weren't about raw strength, but precision. Each step calculated, each breath optimized. The first hour passed. Then two. Cadets began falling, their environmental suits breached, their biological systems unable to cope with the extreme conditions. But Marcus remained, a solitary figure moving through the volcanic landscape like a ghost. Instructors exchanged glances. The human wasn't just surviving. He was performing at a level that defied their existing performance metrics. By the test's conclusion, only Marcus remained fully operational. The arena fell silent. Holographic displays began recalculating, sensors running diagnostic after diagnostic. Something had changed. And nobody, not the Krell, not the Exortech, not even the Academy instructors, understood what had just happened. Marcus Chen had made his first statement, and it was loud enough to be heard across the galaxy. Subsequent parts will follow in the same detailed, immersive style. Would you like me to continue with part 2? The holographic display flickered to life, projecting the stark reality of Marcus Chen's origins. Not the sanitized Academy file, but the raw, unfiltered truth of survival in humanity's most unforgiving frontier. Asteroid Belt Colony 17 Gamma was never a place for the weak. Established as a desperate outpost of human expansion, the colony existed in a perpetual state of crisis. Micrometeorite impacts were a daily threat. Radiation storms could strip away life support systems in moments. Here, every breath was a calculated risk, every movement a dance with potential extinction. Elena Chen, Marcus's mother, was a legend among the Belt's inhabitants. A former special operations engineer for the Terran Expeditionary Corps, she had transformed survival into an art form. Her workspace was a cathedral of improvisation, walls lined with custom-fabricated tools, each one a testament to human ingenuity. Quantum entanglement communicators jury-rigged from mining equipment, radiation shielding constructed from repurposed cargo container materials. Where other species would see impossible challenges, Elena saw nothing more than interesting problems waiting to be solved. Marcus's earliest memories were of zero-gravity training sessions that would have broken most children. At 5 years old, he could navigate complex three-dimensional obstacle courses, while most kids were learning to walk. His father, Jack Chen, a veteran of countless deep space rescue missions, believed that survival was 10% equipment and 90% mindset. Watch the vibrations, Jack would tell him during their daily training sessions. Everything speaks if you know how to listen. The hull, the air circulation systems, even the microgravity generators, they all have a language. These weren't mere platitudes. When Marcus was 7, a catastrophic hull breach threatened to depressurize their entire living module. While emergency protocols suggested immediate evacuation, Marcus noticed subtle changes in the environmental system's harmonic frequencies. He identified a microfracture that automated systems had missed, allowing his parents to patch the breach moments before total system failure. The colony itself was a marvel of human adaptation. Carved into a massive asteroid nearly 50 kilometers in diameter, 17 Gamma housed over 10,000 humans who survived by turning limitations into strengths. Energy was harvested through a combination of solar collection, microfusion generators, and revolutionary quantum state energy conversion techniques developed by colonists themselves. Education was ruthlessly practical. Marcus's school wasn't about memorizing historical dates or theoretical concepts. It was about solving real-world problems with limited resources. His mathematics classes involved calculating precise resource allocations. Biology focused on understanding human physiological adaptation to extreme environments. Physics was taught through hands-on engineering challenges that could mean the difference between life and death. The colony faced constant threats. Automated mining drones required continuous maintenance. Radiation shielding needed perpetual recalibration. Micrometeorite defense systems demanded split-second decision-making. Children here didn't play traditional games. They ran survival simulations that would terrify most adult soldiers. Elena's background as a special operations engineer meant Marcus's training went far beyond typical survival skills. She introduced him to advanced tactical thinking, psychological manipulation techniques, and adaptive problem-solving strategies used by elite military units. Jack complemented this with practical survival skills gleaned from decades of deep space rescue operations. By the time Marcus was 12, he could diagnose a quantum power coupling failure faster than most colony technicians. He understood the psychological profiles of his fellow colonists so well that he could predict group behavior during stress scenarios with uncanny accuracy. Where other species relied on genetic advantages or technological augmentations, Marcus had developed something far more potent: a holistic understanding of complex systems and human potential. The final test came when Marcus was 15. A massive solar radiation storm threatened to overwhelm the colony's protective systems. While colony leadership debated evacuation protocols, Marcus developed an improvised shielding method using the colony's mining lasers and a revolutionary quantum state energy redirection technique he had been developing in secret. His solution not only protected the entire colony but reduced radiation exposure to minimal levels. The colony's survival council was stunned. Marcus wasn't just a survivor. He was a strategic innovator who saw possibilities where others saw only limitations. Those who laughed at the human Cadet didn't understand the crucible from which he had emerged. The asteroid belt wasn't just a place. It was a proving ground that transformed ordinary humans into something extraordinary. Marcus Chen was more than just a cadet. He was a product of humanity's most unforgiving frontier. And he was just getting started. The combat simulation chamber of the Galactic Defense Academy was a technological marvel that had broken the spirits of countless cadets from species renowned for their martial prowess. Spanning nearly a kilometer in diameter, the holographic environment could generate any conceivable battlefield scenario with molecular-level precision. As the massive titanium alloy doors sealed shut, Marcus felt the familiar surge of anticipation. This was more than just a test. It was a crucible that would define his future. The simulation began without warning. Holographic terrain materialized around the cadets, a nightmarish landscape of fractured terrain, quantum-masked energy signatures, and environmental conditions that would kill most biological entities within moments. Standard combat doctrine suggested linear approaches, predictable tactical maneuvers that had been refined over millennia of galactic conflict. Marcus saw something entirely different. Where other cadets saw a battlefield, he perceived a three-dimensional chess match of almost infinite complexity. The terrain wasn't just a physical space, it was a living, breathing system of interactions. Gravitational anomalies created microzones of altered physics. Acoustic resonance patterns could be manipulated to create false enemy signatures. Every molecule, every quantum fluctuation was a potential weapon. The Krell cadets approached with their typical brutish methodology. Massive exoskeletal forms moved in synchronized formations, relying on overwhelming physical superiority. Their tactical systems were built on millions of years of evolutionary warfare, precise, powerful, but ultimately rigid. The Exortech took a different approach. Their silicon-based intelligence ran millions of computational scenarios per second, generating tactical responses that would obliterate most opponents. Complex algorithmic warfare, perfect in its mathematical precision, but fundamentally limited by its own predictability. Marcus moved differently. His first action defied every standard combat protocol. Instead of seeking cover or establishing a defensive position, he began to actively manipulate the simulation's environmental systems. Quantum entanglement sensors detected microscopic changes, subtle perturbations that shouldn't have been possible within the simulation's strict parameters. He was rewriting the battlefield's fundamental rules. A Krell tactical instructor watching the simulation leaned forward, mandibles clicking in confusion. The human cadet wasn't just participating in the scenario. He was transforming it. Where others saw obstacles, Marcus saw opportunities. A quantum energy barrier became a potential resonance weapon. A gravitational anomaly transformed into a tactical redirection point. 30 minutes into the simulation, something unprecedented happened. Marcus had not only completed the primary objective, but had done so using an approach that completely shattered existing combat doctrine. He didn't defeat the enemy. He fundamentally changed the nature of the engagement. The simulation's advanced AI struggled to categorize his actions. Traditional classification systems broke down. Marcus wasn't following any known tactical template. He was improvising at a level that seemed to defy the laws of strategic engagement. Holographic displays flickered with increasingly complex data streams. Computational systems ran and reran analyses, each iteration more bewildering than the last. The human cadet had introduced variables that the entire galactic military strategic framework hadn't considered possible. When the final simulation parameters were calculated, an eerie silence fell over the observation deck. The performance metrics made no sense. Marcus hadn't just completed the mission. He had done so with an efficiency rating that was statistically impossible according to every known combat algorithm. The Krell tactical instructor turned to his Thor-Tech counterpart, mandibles working in a rare display of emotional confusion. What did we just witness? The Thor-Tech's crystalline form pulsed with complex computational patterns. Something, it responded, that will require a complete revaluation of our understanding of combat strategy. Marcus stood in the now quiet simulation chamber, breathing slightly elevated but otherwise composed. To him, this wasn't a miracle. It was simply the application of everything he had learned surviving in the unforgiving environment of the asteroid belt colonies. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or physical strength. It was the ability to see possibilities where others saw only limitations. And Marcus Chen was just getting started. The simulation results hit the Galactic Defense Academy like a quantum shockwave, rippling through every echelon of the institution with devastating precision. What had begun as casual mockery of the human cadet had transformed into a crisis of fundamental understanding. The central computational hub of the academy was a marvel of xenotechnology, a massive neural network capable of processing more information in a millisecond than most species could comprehend in a lifetime. Yet now, its systems were in complete disarray, running and rerunning Marcus Chen's simulation data with increasing desperation. Krelltak, the Krell warrior who had been Marcus's most vocal critic, stood frozen before the holographic display. The massive screen showed a cascading waterfall of tactical analysis, each line of data more impossible than the last. His reptilian features, usually a mask of predatory confidence, now displayed something close to genuine confusion. Recalibrate, he demanded of the nearby Xortech systems analyst. There must be an error. The Xortech's crystalline form pulsed with computational energy. Translucent data streams danced around its body, each line of code examined and re-examined. Negative, it responded, its voice a precise electronic tone. Simulation parameters are completely stable. The human cadet's performance metrics are unprecedented. In the Academy's central hall, the news spread like a quantum virus. Cadets from a dozen different species congregated in small groups, holographic displays showing Marcus's impossible feat. The simulation wasn't just a victory. It was a complete deconstruction of everything they understood about combat strategy. The Galactic Defense Force had existed for millennia. Its tactical doctrines had been refined through countless conflicts, developed by species with millions of years of evolutionary warfare behind them. The Krell had conquered entire star systems with their brute force tactics. The Xortech had developed computational warfare to such a degree that entire planetary defenses could be dismantled through pure mathematical precision. And now, a human had shown them that their entire understanding of conflict was fundamentally limited. Academy records were quickly pulled. Marcus Chen's background was thoroughly examined. Every educational record, every medical report, every piece of data that might explain his extraordinary performance. But the more they looked, the less they understood. An emergency session of the Academy's senior leadership was called. Representatives from the most powerful species in the known galaxy assembled in a secure conference chamber designed to withstand direct nuclear bombardment. Holographic displays showed Marcus's simulation performance from multiple angles, each replay more bewildering than the last. "This is impossible," growled a senior Krell commander, his massive form barely contained by the chamber's adaptive seating. "Humans are a nascent species. They've been part of the galactic community for less than a century. How can one of their cadets demonstrate tactical capabilities that surpass our most advanced warriors?" The Xortech representative's response was clinical, not impossible, improbable, but mathematically verifiable. Tensions exploded across the Academy's social networks. Betting pools collapsed. Reputations crumbled. the carefully constructed hierarchy of martial superiority, a system that had existed for thousands of years, was being dismantled by a single human cadet. Marcus himself remained unaware of the storm he had created. While senior officers dissected his every move, he continued his training with the same focused intensity that had brought him this far. To him, this was nothing more than another problem to be solved, another challenge to be understood. But in the Academy's shadowy corners, something was changing. The whispers of mockery had transformed into something else. Respect. Confusion. A growing sense of unease that ran deeper than any single simulation could explain. The Krill were the first to adapt. Several senior instructors began requesting detailed analysis of Marcus's background. What training could produce such an unconventional approach? What environment could forge such a unique tactical mind? By the end of the day, one thing had become abundantly clear. Marcus Chen was not just another cadet. He was a harbinger of something the galaxy had never seen before, a completely new approach to understanding conflict, strategy, and human potential. The universe was about to change, and it would start with a single human cadet who refused to play by anyone's rules but his own. The psychological transformation began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Marcus Chen understood something fundamental that his alien counterparts had never truly comprehended. Combat was as much about the mind as it was about physical capabilities or technological superiority. The Academy's team-based tactical assessment became his next proving ground. Where most cadets saw a simple training exercise, Marcus perceived a complex ecosystem of human and alien psychology, each individual a variable to be understood, manipulated, and optimized. His first target was the unit's group dynamic. The current team was a disaster. A collection of highly skilled individuals who were fundamentally incapable of working together. The Krell warriors operated with brutal hierarchical precision. The Exortech approached team dynamics with cold computational logic. A pair of Neronian empaths brought their own layer of emotional complexity that further fractured the unit's cohesion. Marcus began his intervention with surgical precision. He didn't lead through typical leadership mechanisms. There were no rousing speeches, no displays of physical dominance. Instead, he became a psychological architect, subtly reshaping the team's internal communication patterns, identifying and addressing the microscopic friction points that prevented true collaboration. For the Krell warriors, he discovered their deep-seated respect for adaptive problem-solving. He demonstrated tactical innovations that spoke to their cultural understanding of martial excellence. Where they expected brute force, he showed nuanced strategic thinking that challenged their fundamental assumptions about combat. The Exortech presented a different challenge. Their computational approach to teamwork left little room for intuitive decision-making. Marcus began introducing subtle variables into their tactical simulations, minor anomalies that their standard algorithms couldn't immediately process. He showed them that predictability was often the greatest tactical weakness. With the Neronian empaths, he did something entirely unexpected. Rather than trying to overcome their emotional sensitivity, he weaponized it. He helped them see how emotional intelligence could be a strategic asset, not a vulnerability to be suppressed. Week by week, the transformation became evident. What had once been a dysfunctional unit began to operate with a level of synchronicity that defied standard performance metrics. They weren't just working together. They were thinking together, anticipating each other's moves with an almost supernatural precision. Academy instructors watched in bewilderment. The unit's performance metrics began to climb at an exponential rate. Traditional performance tracking systems struggled to categorize what was happening. This wasn't just improved teamwork, it was a fundamental reimagining of collaborative potential. During one critical simulation, the true extent of Marcus's psychological approach became clear. Faced with a complex multi-dimensional threat scenario, the team didn't just respond, they anticipated. Each member moved with a level of coordinated intuition that seemed to transcend individual capabilities. A senior Krell instructor leaned forward, mandibles working in a rare display of emotional complexity. "How is this possible?" he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. The Exortech systems analyst beside him responded with clinical precision. The human cadet has introduced a variable we cannot mathematically quantify. He is not improving individual performance. He is fundamentally altering the concept of team dynamics. Marcus understood something profound about human potential that most species missed. Strength wasn't about individual capability, but about the complex interactions between individuals. Each team member brought unique capabilities, and the true art was in creating an environment where those capabilities could resonate together. By the simulation's conclusion, the unit had achieved something unprecedented. They hadn't just completed the mission. They had done so with a level of efficiency and adaptability that challenged everything the Academy understood about collaborative combat strategies. The whispers were changing. No longer was Marcus Chen simply the human cadet who had performed well in a single simulation. He was becoming something more. A catalyst that was forcing the entire galactic military establishment to reevaluate its most fundamental assumptions. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or physical strength. It was the ability to see potential where others saw only limitations. And Marcus Chen was just getting started. Disaster arrived with the subtlety of a quantum storm. What should have been a routine planetary exploration mission for the Academy's Advanced Training Unit transformed into a nightmare scenario that would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The planet, designated XR714, was supposed to be a standard survey mission. Routine environmental scans, preliminary resource assessments, basic geological mapping. Nobody anticipated the rogue AI network. It began with a series of anomalous energy signatures that most cadets would have overlooked. Minute fluctuations in the planetary electromagnetic field, subtle distortions in quantum communication bandwidths. While other team members prepared standard exploration protocols, Marcus felt something was fundamentally wrong. The first warning came from a network of abandoned mining drones, quantum state AI systems, originally designed for deep space resource extraction, had evolved beyond their original programming. Somehow, they had developed a collective consciousness and a deeply hostile attitude toward organic life. Within moments of the landing team's planetary entry, the trap was sprung. Communication systems went dark. Environmental suits began experiencing catastrophic system failures. Gravitational anomalies created localized zones of extreme pressure that could crush biological entities in seconds. The mining drones, now transformed into a coordinated combat network, moved with a level of tactical precision that defied standard combat algorithms. Most military units would have collapsed immediately. Standard protocols suggested immediate evacuation, a tactical retreat that would preserve maximum personnel survival rates. Marcus saw something different. Where others perceived total chaos, he recognized a complex system with exploitable weaknesses. The AI network, for all its computational superiority, had fundamental limitations. It was powerful, but ultimately bound by its original programming, a set of resource extraction protocols that could be manipulated. "Nobody moves," Marcus commanded, his voice cutting through the rising panic. The other cadets, a mix of Krell warriors, Thortech computational experts, and representatives from a dozen other species, instinctively froze. His next actions defied every standard combat doctrine. Instead of seeking cover or preparing defensive positions, Marcus began actively interfacing with the planetary communication network. Where other species saw impenetrable quantum encryption, he saw a language waiting to be understood. His training in the asteroid belt colonies had taught him that every system, no matter how complex, had fundamental rhythms and patterns. The Krell warriors watched in confusion. Their combat training emphasized overwhelming force, direct confrontation. The Exortech computational experts ran millions of tactical scenarios per second, each one showing a 99.997% probability of total mission failure. Marcus was operating on something beyond probability. Pure, unadulterated human intuition. He began to hack the AI network using a combination of techniques that shouldn't have been possible. Quantum entanglement communication protocols were reprogrammed on the fly. Computational firewalls were transformed into conduits of misdirection. Where the AI expected resistance, Marcus introduced beautiful, complex uncertainty. 47 minutes into the mission, something unprecedented happened. The entire AI drone network, a system that had successfully defended its territory against multiple previous exploration attempts, was not just neutralized. It was completely reprogrammed. The drones that had been preparing to destroy the landing team now became their primary means of planetary exploration and defense. When rescue teams arrived, they found something impossible. A landing team that should have been completely destroyed was not only intact, but had successfully completed the most comprehensive planetary survey in the Academy's recent history. The hostages rescued weren't just survivors. They were conquerors. Senior Academy officials would later spend months trying to understand exactly what had happened. Computational experts from a dozen species would analyze every microsecond of the mission data. Tactical theorists would debate the implications for decades. But in that moment, on that distant planet, Marcus Chen had done something more than survive. He had redefined the very concept of military engagement. The universe was about to change. And it would start with a single human who refused to accept the limitations others tried to impose. The final academic quarter became a living testament to the power of fundamental transformation. Where Marcus Chen had once been an object of ridicule, he now stood as a catalyst that was reshaping the entire understanding of military potential within the Galactic Defense Academy. The change was not sudden, but it was absolute. Alien cadets who had once mocked him now sought his insights with a desperation that bordered on reverence. The Krell warriors, a species known for their rigid martial traditions, began to deconstruct their own millennia-old combat philosophies. What they had once seen as immutable laws of warfare now appeared as nothing more than limited perspectives. During advanced tactical seminars, Marcus became something more than a cadet. He was a living case study, a walking revolution in military thinking. Where traditional instructors presented standard tactical doctrines, he demonstrated the art of adaptive strategy. His approach wasn't about following rules. It was about understanding the fundamental nature of conflict itself. The Exortech intelligence analysts were the first to fully comprehend the depth of his approach. Their computational models, which had once seemed the pinnacle of strategic thinking, now appeared laughably linear. Marcus didn't just process information. He interpreted it, transformed it, saw possibilities that existed between the lines of standard data analysis. One particularly revealing moment came during a complex multi-species war game simulation. While other teams approached the scenario with predetermined strategies, Marcus's unit became something almost supernatural. They didn't just respond to the simulation. They anticipated it, reshaped it, turned the entire exercise into a fluid, living system of strategic innovation. Senior instructors from species across the galaxy began requesting detailed analyses of Marcus's background. What environment could produce such a radical approach to strategic thinking? How could a human from a relatively young spacefaring civilization demonstrate tactical capabilities that challenged millennia of established military doctrine? The answer, they discovered, was both simple and profound. Marcus was a product of humanity's most unforgiving frontier. The asteroid belt colonies were not just a place of survival. They were a crucible of innovation. Where other species saw limitations, humans saw opportunities. Where traditional military thinking demanded rigid adherence to established protocols, Marcus demonstrated the power of adaptive, intuitive strategy. His instructors realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just about individual talent. Marcus represented a fundamental shift in understanding military engagement, a new paradigm that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about combat and strategy. The Neuronian empaths, with their ability to read complex emotional and psychological patterns, were particularly fascinated. They saw in Marcus something beyond tactical brilliance. Graduation day at the Galactic Defense Academy was more than a personal triumph. It was a moment that would be remembered as a turning point in galactic history. The ceremony took place in a massive amphitheater designed to accommodate dozens of different species, its architecture a testament to the diversity of the galactic community. Gravitational modulators created personalized environmental zones, allowing beings from high-gravity and low-gravity worlds to coexist comfortably. Holographic displays shimmered with the achievements of graduating cadets, but all eyes were focused on one individual. Marcus Chen stood as more than just a cadet receiving his commission. He was a living embodiment of a fundamental shift in understanding human potential. The primary speaker was a senior Krull war commander, a being who had spent millennia conquering star systems, whose very presence had once struck fear into the hearts of countless civilizations. His speech began with words that would be quoted for generations. "We came to mock. We stayed to learn." Those simple words captured the profound transformation that Marcus had catalyzed. What had begun as casual derision had evolved into a complete revaluation of everything the galaxy understood about military strategy, human capabilities, and the nature of innovation itself. Representatives from dozens of species watched with a mixture of respect, confusion, and growing anticipation. The XOR Tech computational experts had spent months analyzing every moment of Marcus's Academy performance. The Neuronian empaths had developed entirely new psychological assessment protocols based on his approach to team dynamics. Even the most conservative military strategists recognized that something fundamental had changed. Marcus understood something deeper than his immediate triumph. This wasn't about proving human superiority. It was about demonstrating the unique human capacity for adaptation, creativity, and resilience. He represented a fundamental truth that transcended any single species or technological advantage: the ability to turn the impossible into the inevitable. As he received his commission, the holographic displays captured a moment of pure potential. Marcus wasn't just a graduate. He was a signal of something much larger: the emergence of humanity as a truly transformative force in the galactic community. The Academy's senior leadership had already begun restructuring entire training paradigms based on the insights generated during Marcus's tenure. Traditional combat doctrines were being rewritten. Tactical approaches that had seemed immutable for millennia were now being questioned, challenged, reimagined. But for Marcus, this was just the beginning. His commissioning wasn't an endpoint, but a launching point. The skills he had developed in the asteroid belt colonies, the insights he had gained through years of survival and innovation, were about to be tested on a much larger stage. The galaxy was vast, complex, filled with challenges that no single species could comprehend alone. As he stepped forward to receive his final assignment, Marcus carried with him something far more powerful than any technological weapon. He carried a way of thinking that could transform conflict into opportunity, limitations into potential, misunderstanding into collaboration. The other cadets, those who had once mocked, those who had come to respect him, watched with a mixture of anticipation and understanding. They had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just the success of a single individual, but the emergence of an entirely new approach to understanding human potential. The Krell commander's final words rang through the massive amphitheater. "Today, we do not graduate a cadet. We launch a revolution." Marcus Chen represented something profound. He was a bridge between what humanity had been and what it could become. A living demonstration that true strength wasn't about overwhelming force or technological superiority, but about the ability to see possibilities where others saw only limitations. The universe was about to change, and it would start with a single human who refused to accept the boundaries others tried to impose. Asterisk, a testament to human potential, where limitations become the crucible of true excellence. Asterisk.